Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. I'd like to welcome all of the Azakhana-e Imam al-Hussein to this seventh Majlis in the series of Majalis, the sixth or the seventh, I believe. And as usual, we will start with the recitation of the Holy Quran. And to do so, I'd like to invite Brother Hassan to start us off. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Al-Qariya, Mal-Qariya, وما أدراك ما القارية يوم يكون الناس كالفراش المبثوث وتكون الجبال كالإهن المنفوش فأما من ثقلت موازينه فهو في عيشة راضية وأما من خفت موازينه فأمه حاوية وما أدراك ما هي نار حامية صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
Brother, for your recitation of Surah Al-Qari'ah, and we've emphasized a lot during these majalis that we need to develop a relationship with the Holy Quran, to understand it, to implement it. And I came across a hadith of Muhammad alayhi salam that I feel really applies to all of us, especially when we procrastinate. More so because it resonated with me, because I tend to procrastinate a lot. So Muhammad alayhi salam says, seize what you have left of your life, and do not keep saying tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. For verily those before you were ruined because of their persistent wishful thinking and their procrastination, until suddenly the command of God, which is death, overtook them while they were heedless. And the reference for this is Al-Kafi, Volume 2, page 136. So, even the Imam himself says that we should take initiative for whatever we feel like we need to achieve. We should take the initiative today, and we should take the initiative now. And there is no better place to learn than the Majalis of Imam Hussein. And to continue the dhikr of Imam Hussein, I'd like to invite Brother Jari Abbas to recite the source for us. Assalamu alaikum, Jari.
Wa alaikum assalam. دعا تو مانگے سکینہ کا واسطہ دے کے دعا تو مانگے سکینہ کا واسطہ دے کے یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے علم پہ جا کے سکینہ کا واسطہ دینا پھرے تھام کے غم اپنے سب سنا دینا جلانا نام سکینہ کا ایک دیا جا کے یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے دعا تو مانگے سکینہ کا واسطہ دے کے یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے علم پہ جاؤ تو بچوں کو ساتھ لے جاؤ وہاں سکینہ کا پرسہ دو پھر دعا مانگو تمہارے حق میں سکینہ جو خود دعا کر دے یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے دعا تو مانگے سکینہ کا واسطہ دے کے یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے ردائے زینب مزتر کا واسطہ دینا، غریب زہرا کا شربت پی فاتحہ دینا، دعائیں مانگنا ہاتھوں میں بالیاں رکھ کے، یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے، دعا تو مانگے سکینہ کا واسطہ دی کی، یہ کیسے ہوگا کہ عباس اور عطا نہ کرے۔ صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. May Allah accept your and may Mawla accept your kalam and your contribution to this majlis. May Allah bless all of you who have attended the Majalis of Imam al-Hussein so far. And, you know, we learned something during the period of Muharram because we pay more attention to Majalis, we devote a little bit more time. But sadly, after these days pass, we do not divert our attention fully, or we do not, let's say, prioritize Islam and learning about Islam. And it really is a shame because in this day and age, it's easier than ever. There are a number of apps we can have on our phone. The one that I really like is called My Daily Hadith. You can download it on Android and on iPhone. And basically every day you can have a set amount of ahadith with references from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, so from the Prophet, from the Aimma. And, you know, they're just small daily reminders, and there's some things that you can implement into your day-to-day lives and also learn about Islam from the sayings of the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. So apps like Nahj al-Balagha, My Daily Hadith, just to keep us in connect with Islam so we don't lose that connection, are really important, and they keep us tethered to Imam al-Hussein, and they keep us focused in a way, you know, give you something to think about, which we often lack when we get lost after we leave the days of Imam al-Hussein. And concluding that statement, I would also like to invite our next reciter, Brother Ali Mustafa, to recite Marcia for us. Assalamu alaikum, Ali.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Amma fiza bata de mujhko پاتر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پاتر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، کیسا ہے یہ چراغا دل ڈوبے جا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے، اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پاتر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، ہونے لگی اذانیں کیسے سروں کو ڈھانپے، بازو بندھے ہوئے ہیں خون رو رہی ہیں آنکھیں، آنکھوں کے خون سے رستے خون میں نہا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے، اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، نیزوں پہ جتنے سر ہیں ایک سر ہے ان میں ایسا، آنکھیں ہیں بند اس کی اور خاک پر ہے گرتا، عباس کا یہ سر ہے तेवर बता रहे हैं क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं इतने चले हैं पैदल कांटों पे सारे कैदी थक जाती चलते चलते चलती अगर जमीन भी पैरों के आबले भी आंसू बहा रहे हैं क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पातर क्यों आ रहे हैं है लोग किस तरह के हमसे दुआ कराएं ऐ कैदियों दुआ दो ये दिन ना हम पे आए लेकर दुआएं हमसे दिल भी दुखा रहे हैं क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पातर क्यों आ रहे हैं माँ के गोदियों से लिपटे हुए हैं बच्चे है हाथ रस्सियों में माँ के ऐसे झकरे बच्चे जो गिर रहे हैं वो मरते जा रहे हैं क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पातर क्यों आ रहे हैं
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Thank you, Brother Ali Mustafa, for your recitation of that wonderful salam. Another hadith that I came across, which is quite relevant, and we can see an example of it in Karbala to a certain extent. It's a part of the sermon of Imam Ali, Sermon 125 from Nahj al-Balagha. And Imam Ali says that the best of people in the sight of Allah is he who likes to act according to what is right, even if it brings him loss and misery, more than what is wrong, even if it brings him profit and increased wealth. Like, of course, the Ayman Muslimin are not capable of committing wrong or sin, of course, but we see that in Karbala, Imam Hussein had a choice to either, in the events leading up to it, to either swear fealty to Yazid or to stand for what is right. And the apparent loss that we saw was the loss of his family, the loss of his loved ones, the imprisonment of his family, of his sisters, of his daughters. But the thing is, it is what Allah demanded of him. And to trust in Allah's plan and Allah's will is what some of us lack, that sabr. And Imam al-Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam teach it to us beautifully, what it means to have sabr, to have patience, to truly have iman that my Rabb, my Lord, knows what is best for me. May Allah guide us and keep us steadfast on the path of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Now, without further ado, I'd also like to invite Brother Samad Kazmi to present a summary of the previous Majlis. Assalamu alaikum, Samad.
Walaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today, I'm quickly going to summarize Agha's yesterday lecture, in which he mentioned that there are certain teachings of Islam, teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and Quran that have become widespread. The values promoted and taught by Islam and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are more globally accepted than ever before. Agha mentioned that justice is clearly an Islamic value. Amir al-Mu'mineen is known to become martyred because of because of justice. Opposing the unjust person, be a helper to an oppressed person, be a helper to one who is violated and suppressed, is an Islamic value. Quran says in Surah Maida that don't allow the conflict to prevent you to do justice. Don't allow that to make you a criminal. Satan would take advantage of that and would make you do injustice. The concept of justice is found in Quran. In the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we revealed books, we sent prophets, so people rise in justice and help others to practice justice. Now it has become a global value. When there is injustice in Palestine, we see thousands of people all around the world come together to protest against it. Agha gave another example that people protest against the regime in South Africa. They did not even live there, but because there was a global pressure, if injustice happens in other continents, people living 1,000 kilometers away would protest against it. Next value that has become global value is democracy. The original word came from Greece, but it is an Islamic value. Democracy is only possible with religion, with Islam, and with leaders in power who are reflecting Islam. Democracy does not mean what people say is right. Rule of the people is Islamic value. People taking charge of their own government, making are responsible of their own future. They must make correct decisions. It is the responsibility of people to govern themselves, appoint a person among themselves, but if people do not want to do it, it is wrong to force them. Amir al-Mu'mineen is another example. It was crystal clear after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he was a rightful Khalifa. Some people went to Saqifa and went against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Ali alayhi salam spoke to 40 people, but only 5 showed up on the day. He showed people what to do, but did not force them to follow him. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Imam Ali alayhi salam that if people support you, stand against oppression. If people do not support you, don't force them. This is the right democracy. Thank you for your patience. Salawat. Allahumma.
As wonderfully expressed by the Agha yesterday and then summarized by Samar today, the values of the Ahlul Bayt have been adopted like the finest of what Islam has to offer, which is the entire religion, but what overall humanity finds appealing has been taken. The concept of social justice, human rights, and protection of those that are vulnerable, the state taking care of people that are vulnerable as well. All these, just like this kind of blanket protection for its citizens, and justice, adl, is an entirely Islamic concept. In fact, Imam Ali alayhi salam, our first Imam, was martyred for his sort of love for the strength of his justice, that he would not tolerate oppression whatsoever. And in undoing some of the actions of his predecessors, really aggravated some of the most notable members of the Islamic community at the time, which led to his martyrdom as well. And there are other political factors involved, of course, but that's not the point of discussion. So I would like to invite Hujjat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, Agha Hamza Sodagar, to begin the Majalis now. Assalamu alaikum, Agha.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening and the return of our Imam, let's recite the salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. For his health and well-being, let's recite the second one louder. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, each and every one of us becomes a true and close companion of that Imam. Let's recite the third one even louder. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. As companions of the, hopefully striving to become the companions of the 12th Imam in the 21st century, we have got to, we said, recognize the development toward Islamic values in the 21st century. And we gave the two examples of social justice as well as democracy. These are two Islamic values, and had it not been for the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, their struggle against tyranny, against the dictatorship of a few, the minority, if it wasn't their efforts, it would have never come to a point where the world would see democracies. I encourage all of you to reread the history that you know and see how this progress is not something that came from top down. It's not that Western governments decided to shift from dictatorships in the forms of monarchy to even the deceptive democracies that they have, because they don't have real democracies. The United States of America is not a true democracy. It is a deception, a government that is established by a few affluent politicians, and it is not there to serve the interests of the people. It is not from the people, by the people, and for the people. It takes the people of the United States of America, the young folks, in the form of its military, and it takes them, for example, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, before that to various other places like Vietnam, and puts their lives on the line, sacrifices the life of the young from amongst its people, not for the interests of the people of America, but rather against the interest of the people of America, and for the interest of corporations, for the interests of the elite, for the interests of a small few who are arguably not even American in the full sense of the word. These multinational corporations. Some of those folks who are leading them are really not even American. They're Zionists from other parts of the world. But for the interests of these folks, they take the American people and put them against the Iraqi people. Both sides kill each other. And who is supposed to be reaping the benefit? Neither the Iraqi people nor the American people. It is for the interests of Dick Cheney, the interests of Paul Wolfowitz, the interests of George W. Bush, not the American people. These are deceptions of democracy, not a real, genuine, even attempt at democracy. It is not a genuine attempt at democracy. The British government is not a genuine attempt of democracy. What's funniest for me is for anyone to think that Britain is a democracy. Britain is a monarchy. They call it a constitutional monarchy. It has a prime minister that people indirectly vote for. But that is less of a deception. It's more clear that it's a dictatorship, but for some reason it seems like they've done a really good job at concealing it to the British public, and British people think that they have a democracy. That's a lie. They don't have democracies. But whatever you have today, the British government having to move from an outright open dictatorship of a king or a queen to something that at least looks like people have a say in their own affairs. The reason why they had to move into that is not that these powers wanted to. They didn't want to do that. But they were forced by the people. And if these governments didn't spread that knowledge about this form of, or these responsibilities of the people and the right of the people to govern themselves, if it didn't come from them, then where did it come from? It came from the efforts of divine figures, above all the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim ajma'in, their struggles, their works, their words. I encourage more and more of us to read that, to think about it, to understand it. Why is it important for a companion, someone who strives to be a companion of the 12th Imam in the 21st century, to realize that these values of Islam, values of Tashayyum, values of the 12th Imam have become global? There are multiple reasons that can be mentioned as reasons and as effects and benefits of that. One, for example, is to realize that it's doable, to see that it's doable, to give us the energy to move forward. Sometimes people who want to be active in spreading awareness to people on a global scale, when they think of that, they're overwhelmed, and they look at our limited abilities and they think that, oh, how can we even attempt to do that? How can we even think of doing that? One thing that can help us realize, look, You do what you need to do. Know that if you do what you need to do, Allah will make it happen. Allah will make it global. One thing that will give us that energy is to see what's already been done, as difficult as it is. You think of the Ahlul Bayt as being oppressed during their time, barely even being able to speak to the local populations. They wanted to shut Imam al-Hussein down so that people in the Muslim world wouldn't hear him. Well, guess what? It took 1,000 years, but God made the message of Imam al-Hussein be heard on a global scale. In Arba'in, 20 plus million people gathered together from different parts of the world. They commemorate Imam al-Hussein. And the message of Hayhat min al-Dhillah is the message that is translated to that social justice. It has happened. It is doable. Imam al-Hussein was killed in Karbala, but his message is more alive than ever before, whereas his opponent, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad in Kufa, Umar ibn Sa'd in Karbala, Shimr in Karbala, Yazid in Sham, these folks, the only reason pretty much that you hear of them even are the Majalis of Abu Abdullah. Otherwise their names would have even been forgotten. The direction of the Muawiyahs and the Yazids is gone. The teachings of the Muawiyahs and Yazids is gone. Nobody even knows their ideology. Nobody even knows what they used to promote, except for the Shia who preach against it. They say, this is what Yazid said, this is wrong. You can't find that. It was not adopted by the people of the world. They seemed to be in power. They seemed to have authority. They seemed to have the military might to crush the movement of Imam al-Hussein. That's what it looked like at the time. That's why a lot of people didn't join Imam al-Hussein. But the few people that did join Imam al-Hussein, today their message of rising against injustice is alive. Their message that even if you kill us, we will not agree to oppression is alive more than ever before. That lesson that, look, you do your part, even if you get killed, you're on the winning team. You're going to be able to do this. You are doing this. Your work is effective. Just do what you can do. This is one reason why it's important to notice that. Another reason why I mention those specific examples is us as Muslimin and as the Shia to recognize those as Islamic values. And know that we are the actual supporters of these, the strongest and the most real and genuine supporters of these concepts. They didn't come and they haven't been implemented because of the West and the Western value system. The Western value system today, what you hear, the term is liberalism. The West is pushing toward liberalism. There are liberals. With liberal ideology, justice doesn't even make sense. There is no such thing as justice. Because anything that you set as a value based on liberalism, you shouldn't be restricted by it. Liberalism leads to tyrants not being restricted by any laws. They can do whatever they want. That's what liberalism is. I don't have time to explain these examples. I'm asserting that that's what it means. That's why it's being implemented in exactly that way. The liberal elite get to dictate to everyone else that LGBTQ should be accepted by everyone. It is not the people who want that. It is an elite that wants everyone to accept that. That's really the meaning of liberalism. That meaning of liberalism can't promote justice. They use the accepted notion of justice to say, oh, the gay people are oppressed. You need to liberate them, give them rights by allowing them to get married. The whole thing based on lies. There is no such thing as a gay person. There is a man who has temptation of sin with another man. And a lot of people have that. And you're saying that that person, because they have that temptation, they should have the right to commit a sin that goes against justice, and then you call that justice, the opposite of the word. Someone being allowed to commit a crime is called justice. Liberalism isn't where the rise for justice came from. Imam al-Hussein is where the rise for justice came from. Democracy is not something that came from the West. Democracy is not something that the West, with its value system of liberalism, value system that disregards and destroys the Quran, that's liberalism. This kicking around of the Quran, if you've seen the videos, that in Sweden the Zionists are promoting or getting this fool to do, and the Swedish government is in support of it, and other Western governments are in support of that behavior. The book of justice is the Quran. Liberalism literally kicks around the Quran. That's what liberals do. The book of democracy, the blueprint of democracy, the book that allows for democracy to be a reality and happen is the Quran. The liberals kick that Quran. It's exactly what they do. That's their relationship with democracy. The reason why they're kicking the Quran around is because if people, or when people, since people are reading this book and accepting its value system, and they are saying, we don't want your value system, these liberals are angry. Like, you don't have the right to read this book, to adopt its values. You don't have the right to do that. You have to adopt our values. We tell you what to accept as a value. We hate this book. So they kick it around for people to think, oh, this isn't a good book to read. And the same way that when Yazid killed Imam al-Hussein to make sure that people don't refer to him, but that just made more people to refer to him, and it gave eternal life to the message of Imam al-Hussein, they can kick the Quran all they want. The Quran is going to become the book that is most read. It's already there. The book that is most read is the Quran. There is no other book that is more read than the Quran. But that will only grow. That's the book that has the blueprint of genuine and real democracy. Where do I get that? Let me cite one verse of the Quran that says exactly that. It says, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ. This is in Surah Al-Hadid. لقد أرسلنا رسلنا بالبينات وأنزلنا معهم الكتاب والميزان ليقوم الناس بالقسط. We have surely sent our missionaries. Rasul is a missionary, not a messenger. That is not a correct translation of Rasul. A messenger delivers a message and they are done. No prophet was sent to simply deliver a message as a delivery man. No, they were missionaries. The mission was to deliver the message, explain the message, and above all, implement the message. Lead the people to implement the message. Lead the people. And that's what this verse says. We sent these missionaries and we revealed with them the book and the scale. The scale are the principles of justice. What are the rights of a person? And what are the responsibilities of a person? That's the scale. That's how you measure justice. It says, we sent the book and the scale with missionaries for what? For them to force people, for them to say this is how it's done, you don't have a right to do otherwise? No. So that يَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, so that people rise in justice. People adopt it, accept it, want to implement it, realize that the missionary, the Rasul, realize the Imam, realize those who know and implement the book more than others are the ones to refer to and ask, can you please lead us toward the best system? It is important as the Shia to understand that, because then once we understand this is where it comes from, we will stop looking at the deceptions of democracy and thinking highly of them, and looking at the Muslim world and the brokenness of the Muslim world and think that's where, or what Islam has to offer. Some people actually think that way. Many of us subconsciously. No. The Western examples are deceptions. The Muslim world is broken not because it implemented Islam, it's broken because it stopped implementing many of the teachings of Islam. It's broken because after Amirul Mu'mineen, the Muslim world chose not to adopt its leaders. The Muslim world went with the model that was more resembling a dictatorship than a democracy that the Quran suggests. That's the reason why it's problematic. That's why it is broken. We moved away from Islamic teachings. It is important that Muslims study their religion and their correct and complete notion of democracy. And stop thinking that what they hear and read and see as, which is called democracy, to be the ideal system. No, it's a deception. The ideal system is in the Quran, it's in the Ahadith, it's in the conduct of Amir al-Mu'mineen, of Sayyid al-Shuhada, of the A'imma, salamullah alayhim ajma'een. The only real democracy, the only real democracy. The Shia of Imam al-Hussein have to understand that, because then they are going to be the ones who move this momentum forward with providing further clarity that if you want democracy, which you do, the whole world is calling for democracy, the whole world values democracy. The next step is for the people of the world to realize what a real democracy is and what the deceptions of democracy are, and distinguish between the two, and recognize the deception of these tyrants in the name of democracy. That's the next step. The people of the world need to recognize. The people of the world have, many of them have recognized that the politicians are corrupt in the Western world. They have recognized that there are issues there, but they haven't recognized that the problem is that the system in its entirety is flawed. They haven't recognized that. And for those who do see the systems are corrupted, it's not just an individual, it's not two individuals, it's not 5 or 10 individuals. It's the system that promotes this type of corruption. It's systematic corruption, systematic injustice. Those who have realized that correctly, they don't have an actual solution for this. They don't have an actual replacement for that. They don't know. Some of them think they know, but the solutions they are thinking of are not actual solutions. Islam provides the solutions. Islam provides the solution. If we as the Muslimin don't know those solutions, which I guarantee you, most of us don't know those solutions. Most of us don't even know Islam talks about these solutions. Most of us don't think democracy is an Islamic concept. Most of us think that democracy is a Western concept. Most of us think that Islam and democracy are two different things, and Islam is against democracy. That's what most of us think. And that's very sad. Those of us who start thinking that democracy is a good thing, we start taking Western democracy and saying, oh, that's what Islam said 1400. No, Islam never said the Western democracy. That model, yes, the world has moved, the point we mentioned yesterday, the world has moved toward wanting democracy because of the work of Islam, because of the work of the Ahlul Bayt. But have they arrived at true democracy, at real democracy, at the Islamic notion of it? No. Don't promote the Western democracies as a good thing that Islam promotes. Islam doesn't promote the Western version of democracy because that's a deception. It's not a real system of democracy. It can never be. With the Western, the foundation of Western value system, post-Enlightenment value system, increasingly more atheist value system, you can never have an actual democracy. Muslims need to understand all of this. Shia need to understand all of this. Shia need to understand that their leaders were the ones who have the answers and the solutions for these problems, and understand what those solutions are based on their teachings, not based on Western value systems. We have to go and find those answers, understand them, process them, then start working on educating others about it. We don't have that education, brothers, sisters. We're not studying our religion. We are regurgitating the same material on a regular basis, just changing the words, but relating it to the same things, very shallow, lack of depth whatsoever. Leaving the Quran out, leaving the actual sayings of the Ahlul Bayt out. We have no idea what they have said. There's an abundance of, or collections of hadith with abundance of material in it. We don't go there. We just wait for somebody to come and say a few words from here and there, and we feel content, and alhamdulillah, we did our majalis, we're over. No. A companion of the 12th Imam needs to spend a good amount of time studying Islam. It doesn't matter if we are Hawza students or we're not. It is our responsibility to study this religion if we want to be companions of the 12th Imam. The companions of the 12th Imam, as we mentioned in the earlier sessions, they have to be the ones who are advancing the technologies, the arts, the sciences. So we need companions of the 12th Imam in all these fields. But if they don't understand Islam, if they don't study Islam, if they don't make progress in their understanding of Islam, then they can call themselves the companions of the 12th Imam all they want. They don't even know what the 12th Imam wants. They're not studying his message. If you're a scientist, you need to study Islam if you want to be the companion of the 12th Imam. You can't only study the sciences. You'll go astray. You'll start feeding the same system, helping the same system of deception and wrong. You need to study Islam. If you are an engineer, if you are someone who is advancing the technologies on the technology side, not the sciences, you need to study Islam. Study Islam. You need to study Islam. Not wait for Majalis and listen to Majalis. That's good. That's needed. But that's not even near enough. That's just the beginning point. That's just for inspiration. Those are just for reminders. That's not studying Islam. Studying Islam requires a person, especially in this day and age, you need to learn another language. You have to learn Arabic. You can't not learn Arabic and study Islam. You just can't. You need to study and learn. Some of the people who want to study Islam at least need to learn Farsi, because the most advanced material on Islam is in the Farsi language right now. to go and find it. There aren't translations available either. You can't wait. How long are you going to wait for an English translation? You need to learn languages, work with books, learn how these books work, what the history of it is. You have to study it. You have to study Islam. To be a companion of the 12th Imam, whatever field you choose to go, as you have talents in arts or in technologies or in sciences, and you need to take those as companions of the 12th Imam. But as companions of the 12th Imam, you need to also study Islam. Whichever of those fields that you have chosen to study further and develop yourselves into that, you need to also study Islam. The common factor between all companions of the 12th Imam is the study of Islam. The study of Islam. We need to study Islam. We can no longer, in the 21st century, as companions of the 12th Imam, we can no longer rely on this speaker and that speaker to come and present something to us. We can no longer wait for somebody to put some basic information together in the form of a book in the languages that we know. We can no longer rely on that. We have got to study the original sources. We have got to study the Quran directly. We have got to study the Hadith directly. Now, that should be done by everybody. Everyone who wants to be a companion of the 12th Imam. You don't want to be a companion of the 12th Imam? Okay. You want to take it easy, you want to be lazy, well, that's fine. You want to be the companion of the 12th Imam in the 21st century, you have to study Islam itself. The most important source of Islam is the Quran. The next most important source of Islam are the narrations from the Ahlul Bayt. The second most important, but it is second, and I'll have to explain this, and I'm repeating that line so you hear it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. The primary source of Islam is the Quran. The secondary source of Islam are the narrations from the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. Well, I thought they were the same. The Prophet says that they are the same. Yes and no. The Quran and the Ahlul Bayt are one and the same. But the Quran and the narrations from the Ahlul Bayt are not the same. If you had Imam al-Sadiq standing and speaking, what he says is the same as the Quran speaking. They're not two different things. But when you have a book saying that somebody heard somebody else hear a third person say that the fourth person said that Imam al-Sadiq said something, that's not necessarily the word of the Ma'sumin. We're not sure if that's exactly the wording of Imam al-Sadiq salamullah alayh. And the primary source is the standard to check the secondary source and make sure and see if that's said by Imam al-Sadiq. In order to be able to understand correctly and identify if a hadith is the saying of an imam, it needs to be checked with the Quran. Because the Quran cannot be duplicated in the sense of creating another version of it, adding things to it. A word cannot be added to the Quran. The Quran that we have is verbatim what was revealed upon our Prophet. All the knowledge of the Quran, the wording of the Quran, the sentences of the Quran have remained the same it is 100% from God, and it contains 100% of what God revealed. There's nothing missing and there's nothing added. When it comes to hadith, there are things that are added. How do we determine which ones are added and which ones are not? When it comes to hadith, the wording can change. The wording can be different from one source compared to the other source. How do we determine what meaning is intended by the Imam? Did he even say this? Did he not? The most important parameter, the most important criterion is the Quran. We have to study Islam. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'll talk a little more about studying Islam as companions of the 12th Imam of the 21st century. We hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us in that direction. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Mazlum. Sallallahu alayk أيها الشهيد بكربلاء عطشانا. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you. My beloved Imam al-Hussein, the Imam who was slaughtered by the Euphrates while his mouth was dry of thirst. On the day of Ashura, the Imam had many companions who were very loyal, despite them being a small minority, a small number, a very small number. But those companions who were there were very loyal to the Imam. They all stood to defend the Imam and not allow the Imam himself and his family to be hurt while they are still alive. There came a time, though, that the companions had all been martyred. They were all shuhada. The Ahlul Bayt started to go one after the other. Ali and Al-Akbar went first. Later Qasim went, the others went, the brothers of Abbas went. Later Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas himself went to bring water. But there came a time that Imam al-Hussein was by himself in terms of warriors and fighters. Men at the age of fighting were all shuhada. Even as young as Qasim was a shaheed. The Imam fought by himself. Today I want to mention someone who is mentioned less. Imam al-Hasan had a younger son who was only 10 years of age, Abdullah ibn Hasan. Abdullah was not allowed, was not even seen as a warrior. He was in the tent. He was with his aunt Zainab, with the rest of the women and children. But when they saw the horse of the Imam without the Imam himself, when Bibi Zainab went to see what's happening to her brother, Abdullah found an opportunity. He ran and found his uncle. As Zainab tried to stop him, she couldn't. He arrived at his uncle's body. There was a mal'oon standing above the Imam's body, holding a sword, wanting to strike the Imam. Abdullah arrives there, tries to stop him. He doesn't have a sword or a weapon. The only thing he has are his arms. He extends them to stop the mal'oon from striking the Imam. He lowers the sword and Abdullah loses his arms. Imam al-Hussein hugs him. The mal'oon Harmala sees Abdullah. He shoots an arrow in the arms of Imam al-Hussein. Abdullah rests in peace. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. يا حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Gulshan-e Zahra, Gulshan-e Zahra, Gulshan-e Zahra, Gulshan-e Zahra. Zahra tere gulshan ka har phool nirala hai. Zahra tere gulshan ka har phool nirala hai. Zahra tere gulshan ka har phool nirala hai. ہر پھول سردے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. ہر پھول سردے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. افسوس مسلمانوں عاشورے کو مقتل میں. افسوس مسلمانوں عاشورے کو مقتل میں. قرآن کے پہاڑوں کو نیزوں پہ اچھالا ہے. قرآن کے پہاڑوں کو نیزوں پہ اچھالا ہے. ہر پھول سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. ہر پھول سر دے کے اسلام کو پالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. زہرا تیرے گلشن کا ہر پھول نرالا ہے. اے موت کبھی تو نے زینب سے نہیں پوچھا. मौत नबी तूने ज़ैनब से नहीं पूछा 18 बरस कैसे इस शेर को पाला है 18 बरस कैसे इस शेर को पाला है हर फूल सर दे के इस्लाम को पाला है हर फूल सर दे के इस्लाम को पाला है ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है बस कमरी ही ज़हरा की डूबी है अंधेरों में बस कबरी ज़हरा की डूबी है अंधेरों में हालांकि मदीने में हर सिमते उजाला है हालांकि मदीने में हर सिमते उजाला है हर फूल सर दे के इस्लाम को पाला है हर फूल सर दे के इस्लाम को पाला है ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है ज़हरा तेरे गुलशन का हर फूल निराला है या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. I truly thank from the depths of my heart brothers Messiah Moise, brother Hasib, brother Sama, Ali Mustafa, Jari Abbas as well. The Hadith app is called My Daily Hadith that I mentioned earlier. So MY Daily Hadith HADIATH App Store, Play Store. You can find it. You can have daily reminders from the different Hadith narrations of the Ahlul Bayt that are attributed to them. Have something to think about. And of course, we will see you all again, inshallah, tomorrow at the same time, continuing on the topic of the Ashab of Imam al-Zamana, 3:30 p.m. tomorrow with Sheikh Hamza Sodagar. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.